Hi, I'm Dr. Liz Aguirre, a professional health and mindset speaker with a mission to help people feel inspired and ready to take action. If you're looking for a speaker for your next event, you can reach me on my website, lizaguirremd.com/contact. Everyone has personal struggles, but have you ever felt like you truly were worse off than other people? I often fell into that trap of comparing myself to others and found myself thinking they just don't get it. If they were in my shoes, they would see that my situation is different. In this episode, I'll share how I went from feeling like a victim to launching my own speaking business to help others uncover their full potential. Today, you'll hear how I learned to own my struggles and quickly overcome the everyday challenges that we have. Are you ready to shift your mindset and tap into the opportunities that are waiting for you right now? Let's go. Welcome to the Creating Clarity podcast, where we talk about clearing the fog, shifting our focus, and uncovering opportunities that are hidden right in front of us. I'm your host, Dr. Liz Aguirre. Before I begin, I must emphasize that this work is separate from my professional medical work and does not represent medical advice or opinions of any specific organization. We all have struggles, every one of us. Our struggles shape who we become. There are different forms of struggles. It can sometimes be something concrete, like not having a job, or it can be something a little bit more challenging to put your finger on, like struggles with motivation or inspiration. I have learned that owning your struggles is important. What I mean by that is you have to acknowledge and accept the struggles. One of the biggest challenges I have had in my life was childhood poverty. That was 30 years ago. Why does it even matter now? I never owned it. And it has literally affected me for the last 3 decades. 3 decades later, I'm still feeling the impact of it. I have finally started to own these struggles, and I've finally stopped being embarrassed by them. What did poverty mean for me? I could make it mean that I wasn't worthy, or I'll always be poor and not have nice things. But instead, I used it as a driving force. I said to myself that I will never struggle like this again. I would do whatever it takes and I would never give up, but I was going to go to college. I would find a way. I could learn. I know I can. But regardless of how well intentioned you are, it's important to realize that your brain can often take you back to past traumas without you even realizing it. Although I had overcome my challenges, I somewhere along the journey had forgotten. I started being around successful people and it made me fearful. I started asking myself how I was going to get things done and keep up with others. Here's the deal: you don't have to know how. You also don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's possible because the path isn't clear. But hear me out. It is literally one step at a time, just one. If you can't walk that one step, then crawl. Eventually, you'll arrive to that point in the path where you start to see the possibilities. Those possibilities will not be clear until you arrive at the clearing ahead. You can only get there by putting one foot in front of the other. Again, I knew all this, but every time I get to a challenging point in my life, my brain offers me negative thoughts. There were several years that my brain won. I was stuck. I was overwhelmed. I cried a lot. I've come full circle to realize just how important one thing is, and that's a support system. It's priceless. That's where my husband Derek came in. He helped me when I stopped believing in myself. He made me realize that with his support, I could do things, not because he was doing them for me, but because he made me believe again. And that's when it hit me. I didn't realize, but my dad was my number one supporter. He was my cheerleader. He was the one who would feed my brain with positive reinforcement and remind me how smart and capable I was. He would stop my negative thoughts and self doubt before they completely took control. My dad died my fourth year of medical school. So it's no coincidence that my negative brain took over at that point. I lost one of the most important people in my life. And shortly after that, I lost my focus and I lost my belief. Believing is the hardest part, and it's also one of the most important parts. I can't tell you to believe and then you just start doing it. It doesn't work that way. So, how do you overcome the challenges when your mind is literally fighting against you? Sometimes you don't even realize it's fighting against you. You just take the thoughts that it offers as a truth. Thoughts like, it's not possible, or I have no choice, or it is what it is. Those are all lies that our brain offers us. There's always a way. So here's the framework I use through my challenging times, and I'm offering this to you. So get your pen and paper and get ready to write. Here they are. Number one, start with something that is believable. If I had started with a thought that I'm going to be a doctor one day, I would never be a doctor. I had to start with something small and believable, like I can go to college, I can learn, I don't have to be poor. Step two is figure out the next one step. When I decided I was going to college, I decided that the next step was to apply for scholarships. Little did I know that was not the right step. I did apply for scholarships. I got quite a few of them, but I didn't know you actually had to apply to the colleges too. And because of that, I lost a lot of scholarships to these colleges that I never applied for because I didn't know. So you don't know what you don't know. I ended up going to community college, and that ended up being my next step. Just because I fumbled, and that's okay. You course correct. You can always figure it out. There's a way. Number three is be patient with the results. Success does not happen overnight. Look at any successful person and you'll know this. It doesn't happen overnight. Number four, anticipate roadblocks. Know that they're coming and don't let your mind trick you into believing that that's the end of the road. Go back to looking for the next one step. Number five, create reminders. My dad was my reminder, and now my husband is my reminder. But your brain is going to take you back to those old thoughts and limiting beliefs that are just not helpful. Remind yourself of your value, your strengths, your accomplishments, and remind yourself of the thoughts that are believable. For me, I use sticky notes. I have them all over my wall. So when the self doubt starts to creep in, I read one of those positive sticky notes. Number six, last is number six, find your support system. This can be a trusted friend, a mentor, a coach. It wasn't until recently that I realized how important this one was. Again, my dad, back in the day, he was the person that was my number one supporter. He would tell all his doctors that his daughter was going to medical school before I even applied. He fed my brain that belief. He helped me to really believe in what was possible. And he would remind me that every time my mind was trying to convince me otherwise. I didn't really realize this until I started planning this episode of this podcast. When my dad died my fourth year of medical school, my old mindset took over immediately, and I didn't even realize it. My growth became stagnant. At times, I was barely getting by, and I stayed that way for years until it finally sunk in. Like my dad, my husband Derek saw my greatness. He saw my potential and he started planting the seeds once again, giving me those gentle reminders, offering me helpful thoughts. And one day they clicked. I started believing. I started putting one foot in front of another again, putting myself out there, joining new groups, learning, growing, doing. But it took time. I didn't realize it, but all this time I had been following a framework, and the missing piece was the reinforcement when my negative brain started to take over. Once my dad wasn't there anymore, I became lost and I did not know what to do. Now, I had already done all the work. I had earned my medical degree. I was in residency, but I didn't have a support system in place anymore. And so now I want to say thank you, Dad, looking down from heaven. And thank you to my husband, who I was so fortunate enough to find. And now it's my turn. It's my turn to pay it forward. And I plan on being here for all of you. I hope you'll continue to join me in this journey because I owe it to you. My success wasn't achieved alone. I can't think of a better way to show my gratitude than to pay it forward. So if you're struggling today, remember this framework and keep showing up here each week. I'll summarize it one more time for you. Number one, start with a thought that's believable. Number two, figure out the next one step to take. Number three, be patient with the results. Number four, anticipate the roadblocks and be okay with that. Number five, find your support and then repeat and start all over. Thanks for joining me. Once again, I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit subscribe so that you won't miss the next episode. And if you like this episode, please share it with a friend and give me a 5-star review so that I can reach more people. I'll see you next week.
Disclaimer: the views and opinions shared here are for information and educational purposes only. They do not serve as a medical or professional advice. They do not represent any academic, medical, or professional institution or organization. If you found this helpful, don't forget to leave a 5-star review.
Thank you.